Box to Box NBA Preview, hosted by Ndegz.
2023-24 NBA Preview. Next up is Talking All That Jazz. For those of you that know that song, that is Mick Jenkins, Coming From Waters, his album from 2013, 2014, I think. Talking All That Jazz. Yeah, 22nd place is the Utah Jazz. I'm your host, Ndegz, and let's get into it. 22-23 season. This is how the Utah Jazz did. They had a 37-5 record, 12th in the West. If you guys can remember, they started off with a crazy, like they were just going off, right? One big reason is obviously getting in coach Will Hardy from the Boston Celtics, who was part of the coaching staff that took the part of Ime Udoka's coaching staff that took them all the way to the finals, that lost to the Warriors. They missed the playoffs for the first time since 2015-2016. As you guys know, they traded Donovan Mitchell earlier last season, and he was more or less taking them to the playoffs every year. Then obviously they also lost Rudy Gobert and Bogdanovic. Yes, it was considered a tanking year, but they started with a 10-3 start, and guys were like, yo, don't sleep on the Jazz, right? Obviously, they fell off a bit, but what came off amazing, like something amazing that came out of last season was the emergence of Lauri Markannen, who ended up being an all-star. He was the first player in NBA history with 200-plus threes and 100-plus dunks in a season. That is wild. Yeah. It's a team that now believes in him. When he was, to be honest, when he came out of the draft, I think he was drafted by the Bulls. I always thought that he was going to really carry that team. But sometimes just a change of environment can change a lot for you, you know. And also Walker Kessler. If you haven't watched Walker Kessler before, last season when I started watching him, because he started making noise. When that during that 10-3 start, I was like, who is this Walker Kessler guy? You look at him, he just looks languid. He just looks like a random ass, you know. But he actually proved that he can be a starter in the NBA, and he was very solid at center. Probably has to improve his his free throw shooting, but all in all, he was quite solid for this team. With that being said, this was a year where they were building. They needed to add some things to add to the team that did kind of well last season, and these are some of the moves they did. Acquisitions. John Collins came from Atlanta Hawks. I don't like his contract. I don't know why the Hawks decided to reward him. For anyone with eyes knew. Okay, I kind of get it because you don't want to lose an asset for nothing, right? But he was just an average player at best for me. Then Omer Yurtseven from the Heat, who is giving them solid minutes off the bench. Solid 3-point shooter, like he's just a 3-and-D big, right? Then they had 3 draft picks. They picked Taylor Hendricks, Keontae George, and Brice Sensabaugh. We're going to talk about them a bit more. And obviously they extended Jordan Clarkson to a 3-year, $78.5 million contract, and former 6th Man of the Year, now a starter. He's just taking it by the horns. They lost Rudy Gay and Damian Jones. As we have talked about their draft picks, they had the number 9 pick they picked Taylor Hendricks, typical stretch 4. Then in 16th they picked up Keontae George, who's a shot maker, something that they needed after last year, just a bit more shot making around Lauri Markannen, just to space the floor a bit for him. And Brice Sensabaugh, who is more or less a scorer around the rim, yet to get to that three level scoring level, but yeah, and also someone who is just up for the future, right? So expiring contracts: Kelly Olynyk, $12.1 million, still giving them great minutes. THT picked up his player option, so this is his last year, $11.02 million. Then Simone Fontecchio, who is actually getting a lot of minutes in this team as well, after having watched them the last 2-3 games, I think. Then Chris Dunn and Luka Samanic. And those are the moves they've made, and this is how they fit together, their rotation. At point guard, obviously, Jordan Clarkson. Shooting guard, THT, Talen Horton-Tucker. Small forward, Lauri Markannen. Then John Collins has gotten a starting berth. Power forward, then Walker Kessler at center. I'm still not fully convinced about the defense from those 3. Keontae George off the bench, Colin Sexton, Ochai Agbaji. Kelly Olynyk, Chris Dunn, Simone Fontecchio off the bench, and Omer Yurtseven. I really like their bench, just like the likes of the combo of Fontecchio and Yurtseven off the bench. I really like it, and obviously Taylor Hendricks is going to be adding to that depth. my big question for the Jazz is, can they build up to that 37-45 record they had last year, finishing 12th in the West? Their goal would have to be finish at least within the play-in. How well can they defend? I mean, how can they get defense from their front court, right? The backcourt. The likes Lauri Markannen, John Collins, and Walker Kessler, not the greatest athletes. John Collins is a great athlete, but not the greatest defenders. The other two are not the greatest athletes, not the quickest sliding from left to right. But how much defense can you get from these three? John Collins, his three-point shooting has just looked off, just generally. I don't sound like I'm hating on the guy, but he just hasn't proved anything to me the last few years I've watched him in the league. The last time he had a really good season was the year they knocked out the Sixers, where Ben Simmons' last game when, we all know what happened with Benny Ben. But can Will Hardy get defense out of this team? I saw Jason Terry is actually one of the assistant coaches. That was interesting to see the other day. But my biggest question would just be the defense from the Jazz. I feel like they move the ball. They have good three-point shooting. They can create offense. There are teams that have way worse offenses in this list than the Jazz. The biggest question for me for them would have to be defense, because playing in the West, you're going to be playing against the likes of, when it comes to big men, obviously you have the Suns, who are quite big and will be moving your guards a lot, right? You will have to. Your big men, your John Collins and Lauri Markannen, will have to switch onto the likes of Devin Booker, the likes of Bradley Beal, the likes of KD, Jamal Murray, Steph, De'Aaron Fox, Ja when he comes back, Kawhi, PG, and Harden and Russ, SGA, the Mavs with these two boys, Luka and Kyrie. So it's for them, defense has to be the priority. You're not going to make it out of the West with average defense. Your defense has to be above average. And that is my big question for the Jazz. Can they improve their defense in their small forward, power forward, and center combo? 24-second prediction. Utah Jazz, talking about that Jazz. I am seeing the Jazz just slightly improve on the average of last year. They might get to about 40 wins for me. I see them still being around that 10th, 11th position. They might just miss the playoffs, the play-in tournament, because the West is stacked. But I'm expecting a big season again from Lauri Markannen, Jordan Clarkson as well. And I'm very curious to see if they can actually improve their three-point shooting. But my prediction for the Jazz is they're going to be just outside the play-in tournament. And that is our prediction for the Utah Jazz, talking all that jazz. Next up in our list, finally, a team from the East. Big Ben and Yang to the beat. Peace.
Ready for the ultimate slam dunk of content? Don't miss out on any of our NBA previews. Hit subscribe and be the MVP of your basketball knowledge game.